job at Swarovski, which it was definitely not like, I guess it wasn't challenging for me. Like I didn't go to school to do something like that. And it also came very easy to me coming from a bigger company. But that ended in January because it was a very short seasonal job. And regardless, due to COVID, I know retail is not, the place to be. It's not where I want to be anyway. But I haven't technically worked then since January. So as I was looking for jobs, it's kind of ironic. January, February, I just really wanted a travel job. I knew like that's my passion. I just wanted to travel.
Sorry, what industry did you say you wanted in?
I wanted to work in the travel industry, or not even.
Okay, great. I just didn't hear you. That's terrific.
Well, it doesn't have to be in the industry. I technically prefer like the luxury fashion industry given my background, except I would like a job that sends me to places. The issue is after COVID happened, that's kind of not realistic. So the past 2.5 months, I've been getting an online digital marketing certificate. So I've been learning like data analytics, SEO, all of that. So I guess technically I really do want a job in digital marketing.
Okay.
I don't know if that would send me places, but yeah, I'm kind of looking for that. I haven't had a virtual interview yet, but I really like all the things that Dress for Success offers. I plan on volunteering anyway, and I was like, well, I could even use their services, so it was kind of like a win-win.
Awesome.
Great. So for the people who just joined, I asked 2 questions. One is, what do you hope to get out of today, so that I can get to know you all a little better, and I can help make sure I've targeted my remarks to answer your questions, and if not, I'll fill in at the end. And then secondly, what types of jobs are you looking to interview for? So I think, Jean, you were the next one to join the call. Do you mind opening up and sharing
No, not at all.
today?
I feel a little in limbo, but I'm not. I actually did a whole different career path. I was starting to do interning to become a peer recovery specialist.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What?
When the COVID virus came, I was starting my internship as a peer recovery specialist.
Peer recovery, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dealing with people in recovery from different substance abuse. And my dream is to become a substance counselor in the future. I have previous healthcare experience, but I also have accounting experience. I'm taking a lot of classes online right now. Right now I'm taking another class to be a trauma support specialist. Uh-oh, did I go? Oh.
No, you're still there.
I'm sorry. My computer. And I'm taking classes about drugs and alcohol recovery. And because I want to be a counselor from a family perspective, being that I was exposed to it most of my life. That's it for me. But right now, I'm actually looking for a part-time or full-time job, and with all my experience, almost anything.
So what are you hoping to get out of today then?
I've never done a real interview on like this. And my interview skills are very rusty.
Fabulous. It's all fine.
But
okay. I'm gonna just, do you mind if I cut you off? Because I want to get through everybody. Do you mind? I think Kathleen, you were next. Would you mind giving me a quick?
Sure. Hi, how are you? I am switching out of retail field. I worked there for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I had my own store at one time, and then I just did it because it worked with my kids' schedules, but now they're out of the house. So I am looking into getting into event meeting planning, fundraising, nonprofits. But now with COVID hitting and everybody in that field's not doing well, I've started looking into like customer service jobs. I have a certificate, which I just got, and I'm also interested in social media, marketing, that kind of stuff too. So
great.
Looking to improve. I've never done any interviewing on a video. I've been on Zoom meetings, and then just like Jean, my interview skills are a little rusty. So.
Terrific. Thank you. Super helpful. Maybe we'll do Karen O'Neill next.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going back to the workforce after being out on disability for a while. I looked at my resume and contacted old supervisors to see what courses I should take. So I've been taking project management courses. I've gotten my ITIL certificate on the foundation, started taking more of those. I just finished an agile course that I'm studying for. So I'm taking a lot of courses to up my credentials since I've been out so long. What else did you need to know? I'm sorry. I
So
forgot.
what are you hoping to get out of today?
Oh, I haven't been on a formal interview in like forever. So I am like so
Fabulous.
rusty.
Okay. Great. K.A. Foster. Can you take us off mute and tell us what you're hoping to get out of today?
Kelly, I think that's you, Kelly. Is that Kelly or Kiva?
We'll go
It's
on to somebody
Kelly.
else.
Oh, okay.
Tasha?
Hi.
Hi.
I was recently actually laid off. I did payroll and I was a bookkeeper at a hotel. I had been on the job for over 20, 25, 27 years. So 27 years. And I have not, what I'm looking to get out of this is I have not been on an interview in that long. So was with the company for a while. So my interview skills are very rusty. So
Okay.
yeah, I need help. So that's pretty much it.
That sounds like that we can do some of that. So good.
Okay.
Let's see. I have a phone number, 702-406-6198. I don't know who this person is, but your phone number is showing up on the screen.
Yeah, the person on the phone, whoever joined us on a phone call. I don't know who that is either by phone. Oh, and Sala left. I think Sala's having bad reception. She keeps
Okay.
coming in and out.
Okay, did I miss anybody? K.A. Foster did not.
Kelly, do you hear us, Kelly? I'm wondering if this storm is just
Taking everybody out? Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everybody for giving me background about yourself. I really appreciate that because I wanted to start out with introductions and then I would tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Laura Norwalk Vendelius. I have been in the image and personal branding world for a long time. I also have been a recruiter for a women's fashion company looking for women who are looking to do startups. So I have done a lot of interviewing, both in this role. I was in healthcare before I went into fashion, but that was a long time ago. And I also built my team. So I've definitely done a lot of interviewing of others. So I thought we'd go over some of the basics. I'm going to share my screen with you and we will get started. There will be time for questions at the end, but if you have questions in the meantime, please put them in the chat so that we can move this. So we can make sure to get them answered, and Lorraine will send me a text if something is urgent. So, mastering the virtual interview. The framework that I wanted to go through today is the keys to success. As much as we're going to be nervous for the actual interview itself, technology preparation is going to be a big part of these interviews. So it's just to add one more layer of stress to everything that I wish we didn't have to add, but we do. So we're just going to go with it. Image, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about camera and eye contact. We're going to talk about atmosphere and interview best practices. So once you have your interview set up and you know it's going to be coming, if you have the time a week before your interview, you're going to need to check your internet provider, your bandwidth. And the reason I'm saying this is that in the last 2 weeks, our router had to be upgraded. And everyone in my family has been kicked off of all of our internet calls for almost 2 weeks. And they have just upgraded our router and we are now not having problems. But it did take time to get it resolved. So you're definitely not going to want to get kicked off of calls because it just puts you at a disadvantage from the beginning. You want to look prepared and you don't want that to be part of your issue. So having gone to that, if you can use a wired connection to your router versus virtual or sit near your router, that is going to be great. Lorna, can you mute everybody? And then you want to check the quality of your camera, your headset, or your speaker, and make a test call to determine any issues. So hopefully they will have told you what program you're going to be using, whether it's Zoom or Skype or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. It sounds like a lot of you are taking classes, which is great. It sounds like there's going to be one more class if you haven't worked with these tools that you'll need to learn before your interview. And you're going to want to play around with them. And if you are technologically challenged and you have someone young in your life who can help you, I highly recommend getting their assistance. I wanted to thank both Brenda and Kathleen. I noticed you already have a really great high-res, well-lit photo incorporated in your Zoom profile. All of you will want to have something like that because if you do have camera issues, you want them to see you. You want them to see you and know that they're talking to a human being. So if just your name is on the screen, it does make it more challenging for you to really connect with people. And hopefully you're going to get to do that in person and with them looking at you. But if you can't, you want to have a photo there. The day before your interview. So that's a lot to get ready the week before. The day before your interview, make sure you've downloaded the latest software updates. So go in and make sure that they're updated because you can have a lot of challenges getting on meetings if they're not and who you're interviewing with is or vice versa. So make a test call to confirm the function. Again, you did it a week ago, you're now going to do it the day before. You're going to close, and then on the day of the interview, you're going to be closing all your programs on your computer. You don't want anything to interfere with this. And you're probably going to cook the rest of your family off of all of their calls so that you're the only one using your bandwidth. And then adjust your webcam to frame your face. So if you can see this lady here, she's smiling, the camera, she's close to the camera, she's not too close, she's not too far, her whole face is in the screen. Really important. Double check your audio. If people cannot hear you, you may need to get a headset. And so you're going to really want to check that with the people you're doing a call with. Know where your audio is on your laptop or on your computer or on your camera. Check your privacy settings. You want to make sure you can receive the phone call. So there's so much to do just on technology that alone is daunting, especially if you haven't interviewed in a while. And if you can get all of it taken care of a week before and then the day before, hopefully everything will go smoothly on the day of your interview. On your image, a couple of you asked for some do's and don'ts. So dress professionally for the interview. You want to know what the company dress code is, but it's always better to be more dressed rather than underdressed. I always recommend solid colors that flatter your coloring so that your skin tone is made to look bright versus looks like you have rosy cheeks. It doesn't look sallow. And then if you're willing to wear makeup, I'm going to recommend wearing makeup because the camera washes you out. And if you can put some foundation and blush, you will look better on film. If you really don't wear makeup, pinch your cheeks. Maybe you can put on a little lip gloss, but you'll look better if you do wear makeup. Even if you don't plan to wear much to work, you'll make a better impression. Again, you'll want to confirm that your high-res, well-lit photo has been uploaded. Again, in case you're having camera issues. You're going to check yourself before you enter the room on Zoom or any of the other, or with your handheld camera. You do not want to be checking your image on Zoom. You don't want to be fixing your hair. You don't want to look for something in between your teeth. You don't want to be straightening your shirt. So, and when people do it, you'll giggle because people do check themselves on the camera all the time. You want to sit up straight or stand. If you, for sitting up straight, a real key is put yourself on the very edge of your chair so that there's nothing to lean back and that your feet are flat on in the floor in front of you. Don't forget to smile. You want them to get to know you. You want to bring your best self. You are going to charm somebody to loving you, and they are going to want you on their team. So just make sure that you bring your best self to the interview and warm up through the smile. I highly recommend avoiding stripes. They can make people dizzy. Patterns can be distracting. We want people to focus on you, and white will wash you out. So again, don't use Zoom as the mirror. Don't eat or drink while on Zoom unless you need water, in which case you want to have something, a glass of water there for you. Don't move around, and don't sit in a chair that rolls. My 8-year-old has a chair that rolls and she wiggles on all of her Zoom calls, but I'm not getting her a new desk chair for her Zoom calls, and I just feel bad for her teacher while she's moving around. It's really distracting, but if you've ever looked at a bunch of second graders on a call, they're all moving around. So you don't want to be that. You are poised and you are going to be successful. So I think I mentioned before that Brenda and Kathleen both had great pictures, but I just, in case nobody had one, these are just different pictures that I wanted to show up the upper left-hand corner and the middle right. They've uploaded pictures of themselves that show them with a nice smile. They're well lit. You can see their features. And you'd be able to relate to them if you can't see them moving on screen. With your camera, if you are talking to the person on the screen and having a conversation by looking at the person you're interviewing with, then you are probably not really actually talking to them. You want to move the camera, if you can, to the screen and be able to talk to the camera. Ideally, on a lot of these programs, and certainly I know Zoom the best, you can move all your people to be across the top of your screen. And if you can move your camera over the person you're talking to. So right now, my camera's over Sala, and I would be talking with her. So you want to definitely focus your camera to be able to talk to people directly and to be looking at the camera. So you want to know where your camera is so that you can make that impression. And because people find it very disconcerting. If you can move your people around, that's great. You definitely want to come up with a way, and this is why you want to play with the programs. You want to make sure that you can find a way to talk to the camera and make it look like you're just talking to the person. Also, one of the things that you are going to want to do for your image is that ideally your camera is above you. If your camera is below you, it will make you look, it will show you in a less flattering light. It might give you a couple chins, and then which we don't need. And then it also might catch you at an angle that isn't great to look at, or it might catch your ceiling. People don't want to look at your ceiling. They want to see you, and they don't want to be distracted by the background. Have I hammered it in that we want to make sure you're looking at the camera enough? Okay. Location, do's, find a quiet location. That could be hard. You want to silence technology. It's funny, as I was practicing this, I had completely forgotten to silence a landline phone that I almost never use, and we only get marketing calls on. And I'm sitting here going over the presentation with a friend, and the phone is ringing in the background. And I thought, well, wasn't that fortuitous? I got to silence it before going on the call with you guys. That is really key. Make sure that your phone is silenced. You don't want to hear the dings of a text coming in. You don't want to be looking at your phone. You don't want to notice that. So you want to have your notifications off if you can. Simple background, less is more. And then check your lighting. I have pictured below ring lights, and we can talk about those more later. They definitely help you be front lit. It is important that people see you and your face. So your don'ts for this is don't compromise on quiet. If you can't get a quiet space in your own home, see if you can go to a friend's, although it's COVID, so you may not be able to do that. But if there's somebody in your bubble who you can be in a room that's quiet, or you banish everyone to the basement and you go to a bedroom, and you make sure that no one can come in. But the other thing is, I try not to use a distracting background. There are virtual backgrounds. They can be incredibly distracting. And I don't want you sitting in front of a window so that you don't show up as a silhouette. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an example. This is my do background, which is a wall. It might have a painting. It might have a lamp. It could be a plain white wall, and that is fine. People will look, if you have books behind you, people will be distracted reading all the books on your bookshelf. If you are in a messy space, they'll be looking around and looking at all of your mess. If you do a virtual background, one of the things about virtual backgrounds, this is a virtual background. It's not a natural environment. It's not a professional environment. There are professional ones, but sometimes your head goes in and out of it. Somebody was telling me about a woman who had a virtual background of the Southwest with a cactus behind her. Well, somehow she became part of the cactus and her head would go in and out and she was part of the cactus. So they were terribly distracted. And I don't want that for you. So if you can find even just a blank wall, that would be great. If you have to use a bedroom, my office is a bedroom, as you can see in the background. I've got a Murphy bed on the wall and, a bedside table lamp, but it is, it's clean and neat and it presents fine. That is the space that I use for my calls. And if that's what you need, just make sure it's clean. If you're in a bedroom and you have to see the bed, make the bed. Everybody is, in COVID, people are super understanding. You just have to present your best self. So, Laramie, if we can take everybody off mute, I wanted to see what people's thoughts were about the people in these pictures. So who would like to comment about this woman in the upper left-hand corner?
She has too much stuff behind her and it's dark.
Exactly. She's backlit, although she's also frontlit, so that is one good thing. And what about this woman in the middle? Anyone have a comment?
Looks a little unkept.
Looks tired.
Looks tired.
Yeah, she looks tired.
Tired. Half her face is lit up. You see that? How half of her face is lit up and the other half is dark?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't look happy, right? I mean, I will say I picked this because not one of these people looks happy.
No.
How about this gentleman down here?
Trial.
I'm sorry, what?
He's cut off.
He's cut off, exactly.
That's
Trial.
He has his hands over his mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do that.
And how about this lady right here?
It's not a clear picture of her.
Right, you can't really
Wow.
see. She's backlit.
Like a little.
She's sort of glowing because she's got a window right next to her.
Trial.
What is that?
Sala, I think you're trying to say something, but I'm not understanding you. I don't know if you're having technology challenges.
Trial.
Let me mute.
So you guys all nailed these things. So I'm just gonna go back. You guys, everybody's comments, you saw what challenges were and you saw how you thought something about the situation, right? Oh, it looks messy. So I think we've covered a lot of the basic virtual pieces I think there's a lot to cover to be ready. Some of them are the similar things that you'd have to do to be ready for a regular interview. And now we're going to delve into the things that you really do need to have for a regular interview, but a little bit different virtually. You want to print a copy of your own resume. If you need to refer to it, you want to have that in front of you. You want to have a resume file ready to send or to screen share with somebody in case for some reason they didn't get it. You want to find out, if you can, ahead of time who you're going to be interviewing with, because you can learn about potential common interests by looking at their Facebook profile or their LinkedIn profile. I think you will feel more comfortable talking with them. You'll feel like you know them a little ahead of time. And maybe it'll make you less nervous, and maybe you can identify that commonality up front and say, oh, I saw that you like, and it looks like you've done your homework. You're going to want to review the job description. Make sure you prepare the stories that go with the skills that they're looking for, how you have those from your resume, how they tie to the job. I'm going to say review your resume again. You can't know your resume well enough. You don't want to sound rote when you're talking about it. So just make sure that it's fresh in front of mind. You want to be in an organized space. You want a pad for note taking so that you can make sure that you have everything you need, and that you ask, if you think of a question you want to ask, you jot that down so that when they ask you what questions you have for them, you don't go to it, you're in the headlights because you don't remember what the question is. You've taken a note and jotted it down. And then the other thing that is going to be slightly terrifying is I'm going to recommend you practice answering interview questions on camera. If you don't have Zoom, you can get a free account on Zoom and you can record yourself. And while it is totally daunting and scary, wouldn't you rather know ahead of time and be able to fix your issues rather than deal with it after the fact and not know? So then, look, she's got an organized space. She has a camera in front of her face. She's got a pen if she needs to use her calculator. Maybe it's an accounting job, but she's got her calendar. Everything in front of her gives her the tools she needs to be successful. And she's smiling. Ending on a positive note. Make sure you state your interest in the position. Remind them that you're excited about it and why. Ask if they need anything else from you. Do they need references, or do they like work samples? Don't forget to ask about next steps in the process. There is nothing worse than leaving an interview and having forgotten that, because it may be tough to get in touch with people. You want to know that before you walk out of the room. It also shows how truly interested you are in the position by saying, oh, what are the next steps? When should I expect to hear? Thank them for their time. Get their contact information. Another reason to have a pad of paper. You want to make sure to get their name and email so that you can send them a personalized thank you. We know you're grateful for any interview you get, so just remember to be positive and express that. So I'm going to go back to opening it up to everybody to see what questions you have. You want to take everybody off mute?
Everyone's off mute but me. Okay. Good. Now we're all unmuted.
Great.
Oh, we're still muted. Okay.
Trial.
Oh, Sala, I'm going to have to mute you. I don't know what's going on over there.
Sala, if you have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat so that we can, and we'll go ahead and
I guess the question I have would, sometimes they have more than one person interviewing. Would that still be happening with Zoom?
It absolutely could be happening with Zoom, because right now, see how we're all on and we're sharing screens? That, yeah, they definitely could have a multiple person interview.
I have a question regarding that. I believe I haven't had an interview in a long time.
Karen, I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Can you speak up, please?
Yes. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just asking, at one point they asked, what questions do you have for us? Do you have a list of questions that are relevant or that I don't know. I never know what to ask on the, when they do that.
So remember that you should be interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. You want to make sure that this is a place that is a culture that you're going to fit in and that you're going to want to be there. So you should have a list of things that are important to you to have in a workplace. And I can't give you specifics on that because you're going to need to come up with what are the key things that you're looking for in a role. And a paycheck isn't going to be the answer, right? Because everybody's looking for that. But what is going to make you stand out is really important for you to be showing them. But then they also, you know, if it's important for you that maybe you have flex time, you have little kids, or that you work remotely, or that they give back, or they have community service, probably not something that you're going to want to be the main question, but it could be, what's a typical day like? Is this a job where I'm going to be doing the same thing day in and day out? For some people, that is exactly what they're looking for because the rest of their life is a little chaotic and they want something simple that they can go and do and focus on one thing and do well. Other people will be bored if there isn't variety. So again, it comes back to define what you're looking for in a role and then interview them as much for the role as they're interviewing you. Now, I don't mean, you know, tough questions, but be curious because you want to know what it's like to work there. Did that help?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I like to usually ask why the position is open.
Great question.
How early should you log in for a Zoom call? Like, since it's not an in-person thing, I don't know if you need to have like a meeting ID for it, like getting in 10 minutes in advance, or like, how does that work?
So with Zoom right now, they have to let you into the meeting.
Okay.
Before you could automatically go in rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it just really depends. Some people may be using the same platform for all the interviews. So if you got there early, you might jump in while they're still interviewing somebody else.
Oh.
I think that should be solved today. You don't want to be too early.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think 5 minutes early is inappropriate, but you want to, because you're going to want to make sure that all the technology is working so you can get started right on time. But I wouldn't be like 15 minutes early. I think that's too early.
And if you like have a Zoom account, but for this, I got in by clicking the link in an email. So I'm not logged into my Zoom account. Otherwise, I think I would be able to upload a photo. So how does it work in entering, I guess, a meeting like this where you're not logged into your account? You just simply got in by clicking a link.
If you have an account and then it should recognize your computer and your photo should be there.
Okay.
So you just upload it on your own account and then it should be there.
Okay.
But it can be device specific.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can't remember if it's always the same photo on my phone as it is on my computer.
Okay.
It should be, but I can't remember. But definitely go into your own account and upload that photo. I think Brenda uploaded hers while we were on the call.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because originally I just saw a B. So it looks great, Brenda. Let's see. What if the questions that you were going to ask were covered by the interviewer? What would you suggest discussing or asking in that situation? I think taking Kathleen's question, why is the position open? Because if there's been a number of people through that job, you're going to want to understand, is it the boss? Is it what's going on? That's a great question to ask. Does that help? Yes, I can provide a link to my LinkedIn. I will send everything to Lorraine afterwards. And if you guys want the slides, because they'll be helpful, I'm happy to have her have those as well. Brenda, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, is there anything else that I should be prepared to share besides my resume? Just because sometimes I feel a little awkward in doing that. I mean, I can practice it ahead of time, but anything else they might like a link to my LinkedIn? Would they want that they might ask for, or that I should be prepared for?
I mean, you're going to know what the job entails because you'll have the job description.
Mhm.
So I think I'm not totally sure how to answer that question because there shouldn't be, but you know, there are questions like if you're going for a sales job, they could ask you to sell them a pen or something, and they're going to be looking for a specific answer. So you can always say at the end, how'd I do? Rate me. Oh, what would you suggest I do? How would you suggest I do that better? So you could ask that on any question that somebody asks you and you answer it. You say, was that what you were looking for? How else might you have answered? What else were you looking for on the question? Because it shows that you're coachable, which everybody wants to know. So Kathleen, I'm going to ask you, where is your camera?
Well, I have an iPad, so it is in the middle left. I know I'm just
Because you're not
temporary,
looking
so-
at it right now. Right now you're
No.
looking at me and
Am I
I'm off
looking
in
at
the
it now?
corner. So,
Now
right.
you're looking at it.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at it. So
Yeah, so I would put
this
a
is
smiley
this is
face.
what I want you to be aware of.
Uh-huh.
Can you move my face to the middle where your camera is? So right now I have everybody coming across the top of my screen. You could also have them coming across the side, but if they're coming across the top, so right now I can talk to you and look at you. And right now I'm looking at Lorraine. And
All right, let me try it this way. Now, is that better?
that is so much better. I
All
love it.
right.
Now you're looking at
Yeah.
me and you're framed. You can have
Okay.
landscape too, but if you have a landscape, play around with where people are. So and make sure you're looking at the camera.
Yes, I would do that for an interview. I just do this the other way, just it's a little easier, but yes, you're right. But I also heard put a
But
little
I think you
smile
wanna
face or
practice
something
it 'cause
behind you, or, right,
If you're not in the habit, you'll do it wrong in the interview.
There you go.
yeah.
To me, this is a habit thing.
Mhm.
So, and it's good for us to all practice.
Right.
If you don't mind that
Oh, no, it's fine. I just, usually I have a bigger box, but my daughter's home, so she's in my office. So,
Here we go.
Do you have any general career advice on how to land the interview? Because at least for me, I'm finding it difficult just to obtain an interview with so many people unemployed and applying for jobs. I feel like getting an interview is like a win. So prior to that, what can you do to have a better chance at obtaining an interview?
How networking.
Okay.
Networking can be incredibly daunting, but talking to everybody you know and letting them know specifically what you want to do. If you know what you want to do, they can help you. If you cannot answer that in in a sentence or two, I don't know how you can expect somebody else to help you. They can't figure out what you want to do for a living. You have to figure that out and take the time to figure that out and then talk to people. And you can ask for informational interviews. You can just, so if you have somebody who's doing something that's in a field you haven't done and you're looking to change fields, or maybe it's in a field you're in, but it's a company you're really curious about, and you know somebody who works there, and you can say, I would love to talk to you about the company. I'd love to talk to you about what you do. Would you have time to do an informational interview? The type of people you want to be connecting with are the type of people who are going to say yes. They've been out of work before. They know what it's like. They want to help others. There are so many people out there who are willing to help others, and you want to be sure to connect. You want to be sure not to just ask them for help, but see what you can do to help them or what they're looking for. If you can get out just networking groups, there's a lot going on right now, that a lot of virtual networking groups. So if you're in a specific industry, you can go online, you can look at Meetup, you can look at LinkedIn and figure out where people are. Where are people doing things that you find interesting, and get out and meet them. And then tell everybody you know specifically what you're looking for. Again, I can't say that enough. You need to know what you're looking for so that other people who want to help you can.
Okay.
I also think of your own, like if you went to university, who's in your alumni network. Look at if there are certain companies you want to work for. A lot of times on LinkedIn, if it's in your profile, what college you went to. Look at, you can see who from your network went to your college or university. It shows up. So that's also a great way to find out. You can also look online on LinkedIn for your college, and it will show what companies people work for. So there's really, like, if you learn to use LinkedIn, it can be a really good resource for you for networking. And they have tons of free classes on LinkedIn. They have resume classes, they have how to use LinkedIn classes. I mean, it's definitely something to look into because it's a lot of free content to help you be your best. Okay, so Brenda asked a question. How does my personality come through on the virtual interview? Can you share about body language and being nervous? I would suggest turning your being nervous into excitement. Maybe not overpowering excitement, but in it just showing enthusiasm. So to start, if you've read about the company and you've learned about things and you've done your research and you've done your homework about the company, you can tell people, well, I really loved this is why I wanted to interview here. If they're asking you why us, or, you know, and they ask you that question, you can say, well, I read this, this, and this, and I really was looking forward to learning more about this. So I worked for Starbucks when they hadn't had a store on the East Coast. I interviewed with them to help open the East Coast, and I had been in their stores in Chicago and said, oh my God, I love this company. I couldn't wait for you to come. I really want to work for you. I want to be in this, in your training program. And on the same day that I got a letter from HR telling me I wasn't going to get an interview, I got a letter from HR in Chicago telling me I was going to get an interview. So I promptly threw one out and kept the other. You don't know where your enthusiasm is going to land. And with one person, it's going to be amazing. And with another person, it's not going to be. So just remember that you have worth and you have value, and there are going to be people who are going to see it and there are going to be people who miss it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with you. How do you have your personality come through? Don't forget to smile. Don't forget to think about the fact that this is an interview for you and it's an interview for them. You want to work for somebody who brings out the best in you, and you want to bring out the best in them. And you want to have fun. You want to be able to go to work and have a good time and be able to laugh. So you want to really connect, which is why I recommended find out what commonalities you might have with somebody who's interviewing you. If you know something about them and you can connect with them about something that you love or about something that they love, they're going to see a natural warmth come through you. Body language. As I said, again, sitting on the edge of the chair so you can sit up straight, looking people in the eye. Make sure you know where the camera is. Where is your face on the camera? Are you on the left side of the screen? Are you on the right side of the screen? Are you centered on the screen? People will have difficulty hearing you if you're back too far. And if you sit back like this, you lose your opportunity to connect. So you want to get it so that your face is close to the screen without being, in somebody's face, but that can show your facial expressions. Because remember that slide with all those people who either looked angry or tired or very intensely serious? That isn't how you want to come across. If you think about what you do when you're nervous, if you move a lot, if you happen to click a pen, whatever, put something in between your hands. If you have a stress ball, you can squeeze a stress ball and get your nervousness out with that too, without anyone having to see it. That can be completely off screen. Wouldn't be able to do that in the interview room. That's a good thing about having a virtual interview. So those are just a few tricks. Any Let's see. Best way to answer why you were let go from your previous job if it wasn't due to COVID. They don't need to know you were let go from your prior job. You don't need to share that. You can say why you left. There weren't opportunities to move up. You need to think about how you spin your leaving. The company financially wasn't doing well. If it was for, they may ask you, but you want to be really thinking about why it was, it wasn't a good cultural fit. A lot of people, this is why I'm talking about culture so much in terms of this interview. One person is not going to see your best self, somebody is. And the culture of a company is crucial for your happiness. If they are super hard charging type A people who are going to work till 11 o'clock at night every night, and you have small children and you aren't going to be able to handle that type of lifestyle, that's not your company. Maybe you want to be with a different, a different level. If you find out, oh, these people really are family people and they're concerned with getting home and coaching their kids' soccer game, you're going to be able to tell that by the type of environment. If you ask what a typical day is and you find out, you ask questions around the type of work and the culture, you're going to want to know those things, because if you find a place that isn't a fit, that's a place you're probably not going to stay. Or if you take a job in an area that doesn't interest you, again, might be a place you're not going to stay. So while you talk about why you're let go, you definitely want to get some coaching around that, and you want to work through the best way to spin that so that you don't have to, so that you can present your best self. Are there other questions? That is it. I have questions for you. So Lorraine and I were talking about the fact that there was some demand for an assertiveness class, or asking for what you need, or how to say no, or managing your boss, all those things that you do once you're in a job. So do any of you have questions in that area? And if not, what we can do is maybe survey other people who were looking for that topic. Is that of any interest to any of you? Because this may just be the wrong audience for asking this question.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I understand your question.
Once you're in a job, getting what you need or what you want out of a situation, getting yourself set up for success, how to be assertive, and how to ask for what you need.
You mean right now or just as a future program?
As
a future program.
Oh yeah, I'd be
Is that
interested
how you
in
were
all that.
wanting me to frame it, Lorraine?
No, that's perfect. Yeah. We're just trying to see if we should create a webinar, basically like a part 2, and base it on that, on how to have a certain, like how to speak to a boss, or, what is acceptable to ask or not to ask, asking for a raise. And like Laura mentioned, like managing up.
Right, like the first 90 days even for people who do get jobs. That would be interesting to me if I get the job.
So I have something that I slightly wanted to share, and so I once had a position where one of my colleague was a very conflicted, she was very narcissistic, and she brought all of her problems to work, and it created a very toxic and just hostile environment. And our manager never did anything because he was a very he didn't like confrontation. And in as much as some of us, we all gathered together and we wrote a letter to HR, and they never did anything about it. So like, what's the best way to, I would want to know, not necessarily right now, obviously, but how do you work with not so much your bosses, but, just colleagues? And if you're still on your 90-day probationary period, I mean, how do you, I mean, I know about putting boundaries and all that, but like, how do you, and then not be that new person that's, because sometimes they expect you to jump on the bandwagon, or like, or just people that have worked there so long and they're not negative, but that's not who you want to be. That's, and they just expect you to sort of side with them when that's happened to me quite often. Am I making any sense?
I think some of this is culture based, and that if people have been there a long time and are negative, that, that's a question that comes back to the interviewing and figuring out if that's a culture. Are they looking to, why is the position open? Is the boss new? If the boss is new, what is the boss looking for in the role? And, sometimes they mention culture change, but I think, I love how Michelle Obama talks about it. When they go low, we go high. And I think it's really something that is true in life. And I don't think it's easy to do it. I don't think any situation you're going to be in, it's easy to do it. I think finding a way to breathe, maybe take 3 breaths before saying anything, saying, wow, validate their feelings. You sound really upset and frustrated. I'm really new here. I really don't know. I mean, when you're new, you get the new card. Wow, that sounds really frustrating. I'm sorry you've experienced that. I hope I don't. I think you have to find a way to stay above it. I don't think it's easy.
Thank you.
And then by the looks of the chat, Laura, it looks like most are interested in an assertiveness class.
Are there specific aspects about assertiveness that you're looking for? Because what I wanted to do was flesh out specific.
Can you give samples? Do you mean like with your boss? Do you mean coworkers, or is there another way of?
Well, I want to know, Lorraine brought it up to me and I said, okay, but I don't know exactly what you're meaning, what you want assertiveness with. So.
I know, we just got like a broad, this was mentioned during one of the surveys. 2 people just wrote it up, and we kind of figured, let's ask questions like what kind of assertiveness, are people interested in?
Okay, so I think, what I may want to say, when you have a supervisor who micromanages, how do you deal with that as far as being assertive and like, how do you deal with that when, in order, I mean, like, I'm responsible for this, and I could do it. That's why I was hired for. So when constantly micromanaging, it's like, I'm not able to really be able to do the job because they're always on you. And it's like, being obviously, this is after like the 90 days. So how do I handle that with assertiveness? I don't know.
Great question. I'm currently just going to gather questions, okay? So
that's fine. No, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about like asking what is your management style, or the management style of the person who will be your boss that you'll be reporting to?
That's in the interview. That's to head that off.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, that's a great question for the interview to head that off.
Would then, how do you then deal with that answer, maybe?
Right. You're going to, again, it comes back to culture. Mm-hmm. People will be hired, but maybe want that guidance. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people like to be trusted, though. And that's learning to manage your boss. And I think that is something that that sometimes comes down to, you can manage them and sometimes you won't be able to, but But definitely getting some tools on where to start, how to start, and we can do that.
So how do you handle a panel interview, a virtual panel interview? I had a friend just mentioned to me that she actually had a panel interview because she works in the pharmaceutical area, and she ended up, her interview was with 4 people because they were all going on vacation and their shifts were changing. So it was that 1 hour and a half that they were able to get everybody together. Everybody said yes. And and I was like, a panel interview on virtual? And yeah, so I became instantly nervous, like, wow.
Breathe. This is where mindfulness comes in. Don't forget to breathe.
Yeah.
They're trying to learn the same thing that in one interview that they would do in 4 different ones. And they're all going to get a chance to give feedback. Do your best to figure out who you're going to be interviewing with. Try to find connections with all of them. And it may just be they've split up the questions and they're going to be asking you'll only have to answer the question once versus going into 4 different interviews and answering a number of the same questions again and again. So just think of it as they're trying to get to know me. It's harder with a small group dynamic than a one-on-one dynamic, absolutely. But they're really just trying to get to know you and your skills. They want to find the right person for the role. So if you're in an interview with 3 or 4 different people, you want to find a way to connect with them and to use your eye contact so that you are talking to each of them. And that's when, if there are 4 of them, if you can pop them up on the top of your screen so that you can talk to each of them by talking to the camera and still see their facial expression, that is going to benefit you. So a lot of the virtual tools we talked about, which you'll want to use in a meeting, are also the tool you'll use for the interview. But remember, they're looking for someone to fill a role. And if they're jerks, you don't want to be there anyway. So hopefully they're just coming and they want to interview you and they want to find out, what are your skills? How are you going to do this? It may be a hard interview because they're looking for the best candidate, but that doesn't mean that you won't have prepared your questions and answers for them ahead of time. And it doesn't matter if it's 4 people or if it's 1 person. You are going in there and you are the one who's going to shine because you deserve the job. And you've thought about it and you know why you want it and you know what skills you have that make you excellent for the job. And for those skills that you're not sure about, you can learn them.
Thank you.
Brenda, does that help?
Absolutely. I like the ending. You can learn.
You can learn. So many women, all of us feel like we have to have 100% of the skills that are in a job description to be able to get a job. And they've done surveys. Most men are like, oh, I have 4 of those skills. Out of 10, I can get this job. Of course I deserve this job. And that's just part of who we are. So one of those things that we probably all need to get over is to remember that I can do it. And as I said, I just read Becoming, Michelle Obama's book, and it was, am I good enough? And she asked the question throughout her life, yes, I am. So I just think all of us are good enough for the jobs, and our nervousness and our insecurity is, we can learn this just as well as anybody else can. I'm looking at the chat. What do you mean by assertiveness on the path of organizational leadership? I don't know, Sala, if you can give me a little bit more. I know you're having trouble with technology in terms of your sound, but if you can type in a little bit more. About the assertiveness on the path, organizational leadership. Assertiveness for creative types in rigid work environments. If you're in a creative, if you're in a rigid work environment and you're creative, it's interesting. I did a workshop on creativity, and there are like 4 quadrants of creativity. One are people who are creative within a very rigid structure. You've got a second quadrant where people are, their creativity are to make small changes and small improvements. The third type are, they can make wholesale change, but, and they're very creative about thinking about problems and changing things. And the fourth type are completely creative, out of the box thinkers. And one of the ways they describe the different type of people in terms of defining who you are is that if you are one of those uber creative people, you are not going to work well with someone who is, because you're going to walk in the room and for a meeting and you won't have your pad of paper and you won't have a pen and you'll need to borrow it from someone. And the person who's a number one is going to have their pen and their paper and they're going to be organized and they're going to be very methodical in how they write down their answers. So the key in developing teams or being on a team is if you do have a very rigid work environment that is all type 1 candidates, or they're all type 1 people, you're probably not a cultural fit if you're so creative that you're like the brainstorming person, and that if you could take an office and take a process and blow it up, that would be like your happiest day. And that you're always thinking outside the box, you're not going to fit with somebody with the offices all ones. But if you have people who are also sort of 2s and 3s, they will work, you'll work well. The 2s and 3s can work across the 1s and the 4s. If that, you know, so if you're not extreme on the creativity side, or you're not extreme on the rigidity side, and you can balance yourself. So like, you know, you come to a meeting and you most of the time have your pens and papers and you're organized. You know, you'll be fine working with somebody who's super creative or super rigid. I don't know if that helps, but if truly you're totally creative, that is just not the environment for you if it's super rigid. Unless they value you and understand that you need to be partnered with someone who is creative but also structured. Does that, hopefully that helps a little bit, Sala. Let's see. Oh, what does the industry say about ageism? Oh, it's live and well. It is everywhere. I have a girlfriend who is just recently got a job. She is 50 and was hired by a woman who was 60. And it took her a long time to get a job. So it is there. And I think if you can do your best to present yourself. I had a client who was asking me what jewelry to wear to an interview, and she had lots and lots of gold from, you know, very expensive. And I recommended sort of a more fun, little bit younger piece of jewelry that was a little, it was costume, but had a little pizzazz to it, so that it didn't put her in a classification of, oh, you're wearing that Tiffany's pendant that you got 15 years ago and that identifies you in a certain age bracket. So it's thinking about what you're wearing and what you're looking like. You know, look, if you take all the dates off your resume, people are going to know you're of an age. But there are people who are looking for more experienced people in the work world, and you're probably going to find a job through your personal network. You're probably going to find something either in a returnship. Those do exist. iRelaunch is a great place to look. There are a lot of returnship going on right now. Morgan Stanley has one. So just depending on what type of company you've been with or what you're looking for is where you may, they do have programs for this. Wow, there's so much to say about ageism. I wish it weren't true, but it is out there. So do your best to look young. Take your dates of take some dates off your resume. And I do have another girlfriend who is over 50 as well. Got a job. They didn't find out how old she was until she filled out the job application, and they thought she was 10 years younger than she is. So, you know, she definitely dyes her grays. She, I think, you know, I think it's there. We are at a disadvantage, since all of us are women on the call. We are at a disadvantage in this world in terms of making sure we look the part. And in fighting ageism, but it's across the board with both men and women. So, virtual lunch or breakfast interview. Ideally, try not to eat. Maybe have a cup of coffee. You don't want to get food on yourself. You don't want to, I think you can avoid eating. Avoid eating. There should not have to be virtual breakfasts or lunches. But if there are and you need to choose something to eat, don't choose a salad, because you can easily get the oil splattering, or it's just maybe the lettuce pieces aren't, you didn't cut them small enough. Don't do spaghetti. If you want to do something, do pasta, do short pieces of pasta, penne, or, but just thinking about something that isn't going to be a mess, that isn't going to get on your front. If you splatter food, tomato sauce, whatever, just be careful. I think it's a hard, ideally you won't have it, but if you do, come up with things that are easy to look, composed eating, so that you don't look, so that you don't make a mess. Hopefully that helps. I do suggest taking dates off LinkedIn as well. If you are having, ageism, you don't have to have the dates in your college degree. And you may leave out a job or two. But you could still have the dates for the jobs, but you could leave out a job or two that's like really early in your career that isn't what you want to do now. Best way to handle or explain gaps in employment. It's interesting. Companies that are offering returnships are better at understanding the gaps in employment. And, but if there are major gaps in employment because you were taking care of a loved one or you took care of kids or whatever, that's what the returnships are for. If the gaps of employment are, COVID's a really good one right now. People aren't really questioning why you're not in work. It's a really good time to be unemployed. And if you can fudge your, when something happens so that you don't have to address it, that's great. And right now people aren't really asking as much because so many people are out of work right now. It's almost like it's easier because it's almost more expected that you might be out of work interviewing. It is always easier to find a job when you have one, but there are a lot of people looking for roles right now. And a lot of the people were laid off because, I heard a few people say they were in retail. Well, retail has been decimated. So many people are looking to leave the retail industry and go into other industries because people are not out at shopping malls, people are not buying, our savings are at an all-time record right now. So, I think that's one way to handle it. If you want, we can talk offline about it a little bit more, but that would be the way I'd sort of talk about that right now. So those are all the questions I'm seeing right now. Asala, I didn't see, oh wait. When a person wants to become a leader at an organization and tools to assert yourself for leadership is becoming a manager or team leader. Okay, gotcha, super helpful. How do I get promoted, right? How do I get the next role? What types of things do I need to do? What do I need to do to get the next role? Okay, super helpful. Okay. What else? We are just about out of time. So thank you, everybody. You guys have been really, really great to talk with. I hope that you find your next role quickly, that this was helpful. And Lorraine and I will talk about the assertiveness training that you guys are looking for.
Awesome. And Laura, are you going to share the slides with me so I can share them with the ladies?
Yeah, of course. I will email those to you. No problem.
Awesome. So I'll email everyone else the details. Thank you all. Thank you, Laura, for taking your time.
Thank you very much.
It was great. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
You too. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.